Pedro Almodovar.
Thank you. Richard, do you think that they are like in shock?
Cookie, they're smiling.
Yeah, I didn't know that during the question and answer it was immediately after watching the movie. Okay, I'm sorry.
Antonio, let me start with a question to you. It's 18 years since Atame, and I'm wondering what it was like to work with Pedro this time.
In a way, it was going back home to work in my own language, going back to work with my family in a way, because not only Pedro Almodovar is his brother Tinin, who's a producer with us, and Jose Luis Alcaine, director of photography, Jose Salcedo, editor. There's a number of people that I used to work with them in the 80s. And he's going back actually to a type of cinematography that I was actually hungry to go back to a person who has broken all the cinematic gravity laws in Spain, all the codes, the rules of making movies in terms of narrative and the issues that he treats. He's just going back to get in the mud, to get dirty, with creating something new, and it has been a wonderful, beautiful celebration.
Elena, when you first read the script, what was your impression, and how did you imagine your role?
Well, I was wordless, speechless, like you guys. Very impressed, and it was like, for me, I expected, I dreamed about getting a beautiful script in my hands like this, with such a complex and incredible character, but having Pedro there, and of course Antonio too, was over, over everything I expected. And I was very happy also for Pedro being so wild, going so further with his story. And I just wanted to kiss him all over his body.
Before or after the New York Film Festival? And Pedro, looking at this work, there's so many, for me, echoes and traces from earlier films. How do you see it within your work from the beginning? In many ways, many people have said the film is a departure, and yet there's much in here that those of us who've watched and loved your films can really certainly see, again expressed.
I think I understood everything. No? You don't mind to be translated of yourself. Eso al final. You want to listen to this? No, okay. Tell me everything that is in front of the... I'm directing you. This is part of the show, anyway. This is a punto de partida. I don't know. I don't analyze my work so much or so deep. Just if I am alone. But if you ask me, then I'm going just to do it. I'm conscious that there is things that I work before in my earlier movies. But for me, I got the impression that they were completely new. Or at least, I don't know if completely, but quite new. I mean, in this movie, I approach one genre that I didn't before, which is the horror movies. I don't mean this is a horror movie, but there is a part inside, like what you saw it, in the middle of the movie, like 20 minutes, that really belongs to that genre. And that was completely new for me. I mean, it was new that I mixed genre, like always, I always did. But things like subjects, like for example, transsexuality, I think I treat it here in a completely different way than before, even the opposite way than before.
I mean, in my former movies, I did it like supporting these people that they have to struggle just to become what they really are. I mean, the identity theme, it was already in that movies, but here the transsexuality, just to give an example, is treated like a punishment. And thinking of this like a punishment, I think is the more awful nightmare you can imagine. So I'm also conscious that the movie is darker than the others, but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be like un punto de partida,
Point of departure.
in my career. I mean, I don't think like to make another movie. I mean, the following movie like very much in this line. Well, I hope that I will surprise myself and I will surprise you with with the next movie. But it's true that I felt, like something, I was doing something new in my career. Even the themes were familiar to me, but under my point of view, I was much more austere than ever, and I really don't know how to explain it.
Let's get some questions from all of you. Yes.
Maestro, do you believe that there is a difference essentially between men and women?
Do you believe that there is a difference, an essential difference between men and women?
There is, but I know how to differentiate one to the other, but I cannot tell you, I can explain you which is this difference. And this movie talks about that. Talks about the identity or identity. Pero lo que intento decir, una de las cosas que dice la película, es que la identidad del individuo no solo no es susceptible a todo el tipo de manipulaciones a los que la cirugía estética tiene acceso, sino que la identidad del individuo está más allá incluso de los genitales. Ni siquiera depende de los genitales que tiene ese cuerpo. Pero sin embargo yo creo que uno entiende perfectamente y diferencia lo femenino de lo masculino. Por lo menos yo lo entiendo.
Yes. What I was trying to say, one of the ideas that I was trying to say is that identity is not something that can really just be so simply manipulated. It really exists beyond plastic surgery and even beyond genital identity. And but with that there is really finally a difference between the masculine and the feminine.
I mean, for me, it was very important when the character of Elena just arrives to her village to the boutique of his or her mother. She realized that doesn't matter what her appearance is, that is completely different and completely manipulated, that she is the same person than 6 years ago before leaving the same place. That was very important for me. That, the identity, the soul, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, but it's in terms of gender too, I mean the feminine or masculine, in something inaccessible, in something not incorporeal.
Not incorporeal.
But it's very, but it's incorporeal. It's probably the same. This is a good joke. But I heard, talking about this gender theme, I heard that here in the United States, this is for me very typical of the United States, because it doesn't happen at least that I know in Europe, that there are young people that don't want to be identified in terms of gender.
Yeah.
I mean, there is like non-gender identified or
Gender specific, non-gender specific.
non-gender specific.
Gender free,
Yeah.
Gender free.
gender fuck.
And, I got an example which is very interesting and funny even. Is the daughter of a friend of mine. And the friend of my friend is a linguistic. So her daughter doesn't want to be called her or daughter, but to call it it or they. But the mother is linguistic, so es algo, quiero decir, es una contradicción tremenda para la madre, para la cual el it y el they tienen un significado.
Yes, it's for the mother a tremendous contradiction. She's a linguist, and it and they just don't have a meaning in terms of her daughter.
I was so amazed. I think it's a wonderful piece to make a comedy about education. Just to pretend to be called like it. I mean, in Europe, in Spain, if you call lo Richard, it's almost like insulting. Lo Richard, lo Antonio, lo Pedro. But anyway, thank you.
You have a really marvelous sense of humor. It's neat. I'm here. I know. Yeah. Anyway, a superb and very endearing sense of humor. And this is a very serious film with very serious themes, and yet there are moments in it that are very funny. You establish a certain kind of detail that's extraordinary. And I don't want to go on about it, but there's the tail of the tiger that just bounces around in a way that's extremely funny. And other details like that, the paintings have no frames around them. I mean, there are so many small essences of your humor. Can you speak about the choices that you make in your films to express your humor?
You all heard that? Choices that Pedro Almodovar makes.
In general or in
In
this
this
movie? In this movie, really, I try to fight against my sense of humor. Because I ask myself to do it or to be the more austere I can be, which is not completely austere because it's not in my nature, but I want it because I think it's always good to have, just little details of humor in any narration, in every gender, not gender, excuse me, genre. In Spanish we call género to everything. To the genre cinematic and also to female and male gender. So it's very confusing in my mind. I don't have confusion about feminine and masculine, but yes, about the words. You have to, I apologize because of that. So they were present in this fight against the humor because, almost every sequence, I think not only in every sequence in one movie, but also in every situation in life, even in the more tragic moments, humor can be present. And in real life, there is, at least, it is present. Depends how you feel, and depends how distant you can be, and depends how much pain you suffer. But the humor is present even in the more awful situation in real life. But I for this, as the subject, it is very extreme, I know, I realized that. Then I wanted not to underline with anything that could be or gory in one hand, and not too much funny because just to be para ser lo más aséptico posible.
To be the sort of cleanest possible.
Pero en cualquier caso sí que el humor está presente y en la escena que ella dice, aunque sea muy terrible lo que va a hacer el hombre tigre, pero inevitablemente hay algo divertido en que el hombre tigre, para identificarse, se baja los pantalones, le muestra el culo y le muestra un lunar, una seña de nacimiento, porque su madre lo va a reconocer. Estoy diciendo simplemente, él está mostrando casi un carnet de identidad, pero al mostrar el culo, pues sí, es divertido. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? Me alegro que lo vea.
Yes, and in fact, in the sequence you're talking about, even though something very terrible is about to happen, you know, there's some things that are funny in there. For example, the Tiger Man, in order to establish his identity, has to pull down his pants and show this kind of mark on his ass. And it's kind of like he's showing his identity card. And, you know, whatever it is pretty funny. He's pulled down his pants.
No, incluso, por ejemplo, cuando Elena le dice, nota que, bueno, ha llegado al final del proceso y está hablando en términos realistas de, ¿te gusta lo que ves? ¿Puedo darme por terminada? Es decir, lo que se esconde detrás de eso es una historia terrible, de un abuso de poder descomunal. Pero podrían ser dos líneas de una comedia también.
Yeah, for example, even in the part when Elena says, do you like how I look? You know, it's horrible. It's the end of an absolutely terrible abuse of power, and yet those are two lines that could have come out of just a comedy.
No, porque también el hecho de que ella pueda decirlo, significa que ella ha sobrevivido a todo aquello y que sigue luchando por encontrar una pequeña rendija por la que esconderse.
But the fact that she is able to say that means that she's won in a way, that she survived, that she's been managed to keep just a tiny little corner where she still has control.
Y siempre en los elementos que muestran claramente el hecho de sobrevivir es donde más fácil resulta introducir algo de humor.
And actually, in those sort of areas in which one strives hardest to survive, it's almost easiest in those little moments to find some aspect of humor.
At least in a Mediterranean country like Spain or Italy, that this is the place that I belong.
Yes, sir. You meant, right, you're pointing to yourself, right. There's a microphone over there, coming.
Could you please talk about your collaboration with Jean-Paul Gaultier?
Question about your collaboration with Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Yes, I think it was fundamental. I mean, it was very important for me because really, I mean, what he should create, I mean, he should design like the second skin. Second skin could be a good title also for this, but it already exists. Because the body, we call body, I mean,
Bodysuit.
the bodysuit that she wear, they are, I mean, el traje refleja la piel que ella tiene dentro. Y de hecho, por las costuras del diseño que hizo Jean-Paul, a través de esas costuras podemos ir a adivinar las scars, las costuras de su propio cuerpo. Entonces digamos que cumplen una función práctica, que es darle al cuerpo unidad, para fortaleza, cubrirlo de las heridas, pero además también cumplen una función conceptual. Es lo que yo digo, bromeando, arte y confección, porque en España no corte y confección. No, perdón, corte y concepción. Que en español, normalmente cuando se hace un traje, esa habilidad se llama corte y confección. Y hablando de Gaultier, es corte y concepción. It's a conceptual. It is variant, isn't it? Que conceptualmente está muy bien y como corte también. It's with a you on Spanish.
The skin actually that she wears on the outside is a reflection of the skin that's inside. And actually, in the kind of scars that were on the model that Jean-Paul designed, they were reflected really in the scars that were on the skin. So in a way, you could say it had two functions. One, a practical function of just holding the body together, but also a conceptual one in that it really did remind us of the scars that were underneath. And then Pedro went on to talk about how in Spain, when you're talking about creating clothing, you speak about the cut and the fabrication. But sort of in a pun, when you're talking about Jean-Paul, it's the cut and the conception.
Y estaban inspirados en Agustín, los bañadores para nadadores que se prohibieron en las últimas Olimpiadas de algún lugar del mundo porque el cuerpo era más veloz de lo normal. Agustín, ¿en qué Olimpiadas fueron? ¿O dónde? Los bañadores. ¿No te acuerdas? Bien.
And actually, they were inspired in the kind of bodysuits that were actually prohibited in the Olympic Games because they actually made the body sleeker and thus you could swim faster.
I mean, the bad news is that you need to have a perfect body. If you have a grain of fat, it appears there, like something bigger. Fortunately, we have the body of Elena Laya, that it was the closest body that I can imagine to perfection. I mean, for you and for me, it could be awful. Not to her. For Antonio will be okay, but something will be here that I don't know. This home.
It will always be cut off.
Did you try it on, Antonio?
No. Not that did you? Okay.
Oh, like,
Yeah, I have a question to Pedro. There are a lot of cultural references in this film, as we all can see. And I'm just wondering whether Pygmalion and Frankenstein were any inspiration for you?
this viewer said there are many cultural references, and he points out he felt there were echoes of Pygmalion and Frankenstein, and was wondering if those were in your mind.
O sea, no estaban en mi cabeza, pero evidentemente estaban alrededor de mí. O sea, son resonancias culturales. O sea, hay toda una iconografía acerca de un científico que crea un nuevo ser que no la puede evitar. Está ahí, desde Frankenstein a Pygmalion y a Vértigo y a Prometeo, y etc. Están presentes. Yo no pensaba en ellos exactamente cuando escribía, pero eran fantasmas que yo podía ver en el rodaje, que llegaban como para saludar, porque estaban, o sea, porque pertenecían a la familia de la historia que estaba contando.
I can't say really that I was thinking consciously, but in fact they're part of the kind of deep cultural pool of resonances that I have. I mean, yes, they're there, of course, but there's really a whole sort of history of the idea of a scientist who's trying to create a new being. So, yes, Frankenstein, yes, Pygmalion, Vertigo, Prometheus. There were a lot of things. I didn't think about them consciously, but in fact, I think the spirits of culture would arrive on the set every day to say hello.
No, but there is one movie that it was more present than all this, and all this reference, but it was Ojos sin Rostros, I mean, Eyes Without a Face, directed by Georges Franju. And if I have to make a parallel between the Mad Doctor that Antonio acts, it's more like I think it was Pierre Bracero, the doctor, the Mad Doctor that is in Eyes Without a Face. But also, I mean, always, of course, Frankenstein is there, and Pygmalion and all that. But also, it was the theme of the creation. In this case, it was just trying to recreate the same women that he loved with a new skin. But it was, I mean, for me, it was a reflection of, let's say, any kind of creation. Even I identify myself a lot sometimes in the character of Antonio. I mean, I don't mean that all directors, you should be like a psycho like that. But I hope not. Good, thank you. But when I figure out myself, just deciding the clothes, deciding the makeup, deciding the hair, all the small details with the characters, and I build one character through them. I mean, taking the advantage of their body. Also, this Mad Doctor has a relation with a filmmaker in the way I behave and I live my profession. That is controlling everything and building new characters through someone else just in front of him. That they are something that I dream.
Antonio, what did you feel about the Doctor after playing him? Could you come to understand him or sympathize in any way, or does he remain a monster for you?
It's not until I actually see the movie that I can establish actually a connection with him in a totally different way than I did when I was working on him. In the rehearsal period, Pedro was very keen to make me act in a very specific way. He wanted my acting to be very contained, very cold, to create a character almost without limits, no parameters, so he's unreadable. You cannot really expect what is going to be the next step it's going to take. Revealing very little and definitely not making a wink of an eye to the audience or just commenting something that actually was going to be in the architecture of the movie, in the narrative process that he was actually developing. So once I assumed that, and we start working that way, for me it was almost like providing him with little pieces of a puzzle that he was going to put together. And in order to do so, I never established a kind of morality judgment of the character. It was just too much of a backpack to carry, too much of a burden to carry over my shoulders during the whole entire time. I just tried to be very specific. And Pedro directed me in a very specific way too, because he is very clear in his directions. In things that probably no other director in the world that I have worked with would put attention. Unbelievable little details. It's almost like the quantum physics of acting. Very, very, very specific things. So I just tried to provide him with that. I was playing the character almost in very specific compartments that I established, like I didn't know the whole entire story. I tried to portray the character almost like a family doctor. I remember one scene that actually can make a connection with what that lady said before about the humor in the movie, which obviously is not a humoristic scene, but when I read it, it produced laughter on me. When I read the script for the first time, which is the only time that I have been a spectator of my own movie, which is the scene with the dildos. I couldn't play that as it was. What I played in my mind is that I was just prescribing pills to somebody. You know, you take 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 3 at night, get a glass of milk, in 3 months you're going to be perfect. I couldn't play that as it was written. But then, obviously, all that material was going to be taken by him and put it in the narrative process. And that is the way that I actually approached the character, because Pedro didn't want to have, not even that kind of thing that, for example, characters played by wonderful actors like Tony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, they always have that kind of wink of an audience. I remember, you all remember probably that kind of mannerism that the character has, this thing that he used to do to the girls. And Pedro didn't want any of those monstrous things. He wanted me to be absolutely natural at any moment, because in the mind of this psychopath, actually, what he's performing is not punishable at all. I think actually she, at some point of the movie, she should be thankful that I made her better than she was. And probably science and the world should be thankful to me, because I advanced science and I took them to a new step that they didn't dare to take. So in his mind, he plays like that. He totally has a disaffection for anybody's pain. He's a megalomaniac, basically.
Elena, what did you think of Vera when you first saw the film?
Well, the first time I watched the film, I spoiled the whole projection because I started to cry in minute 1. Like an idiot baby. That's what happened. And then, you know, I saw it second time, then I saw really the movie. I loved it so much, which sometimes doesn't happen, as you can imagine. And I loved so much what Pedro did with everything. It was, you know, beautiful, and I loved the character so much. I admire so much the desire of this character to live, the desire of a survivor, and the strength, incredible determination to keep going, and how she learned to wait during all those crazy, ugly 6 years of punishment with this doctor. And I love the end so much. I think at the end she's very grateful at the doctor, in a way. Not really, I'm joking. But when she sees the
She was so grateful that she
solar
did it.
dependent. Now, you know, okay, it's difficult, but it's a little wink at the end, you know. She, of course, the mother will recognize it, her, him, because mothers always has an arm to hug, and the seller dependent, it's good too. So yeah, I will, you know, I will have this character with me forever.
Time for just one more. Let's see, it's gentleman right here with the glasses.
Hi, this question is for Mr. Almodovar, and you strike me as a very deliberate filmmaker, and so many of your choices really just speak for themselves, so I don't want you to think that I'm dwelling on this so much, but I couldn't help but wonder why you chose September 10th and September 11th, 2006. Those are the first two dates she writes on the wall, and September 10th is the date that she's kidnapped. Again, you strike me as such a deliberate filmmaker. I had to wonder why you chose those dates, or do they mean anything?
Why did you choose the dates when she writes on the wall, September 10th and then September 11th? Why did you choose those particular days?
Bueno, planeé, una vez simplemente decidí qué día se había ido de su casa, y era alrededor de la época en la que estábamos rodando. En cualquier caso, curiosamente, el día 10 de septiembre tiene un significado personal para mí. Es el día en que murió mi madre. Fue una casualidad, quiero decir, unir en esa misma fecha tanto dolor. Pero me di cuenta cuando ya la había decidido. No tiene otro, era una fecha que estaba alrededor de la fecha en la que estábamos rodando.
Well, actually, in terms of using it for the day that she left, it was really, September 10th was around the time we were actually shooting. But in fact, I later realized that September 10th is a date that has a lot of personal meaning for me, because it's the day my mother died. So it is a day that, you know, I associate with a lot of pain, a lot of sad feeling that way. And so when we decided to do the film, you know, we just chose that date, and later on I realized, you know, what the meaning might have been.
Para mí, sin embargo, la pared tiene una importancia esencial en la narración. Importancia esencial.
But it has for me a kind of essential importance, the date, for the whole narrative.
Voy a ser muy breve. La pared para ella es como su diario.
It's almost like it's her diary that she's writing.
Y lo que para mí era muy importante era que empieza a tomar notas como un preso, poniendo señales en la pared.
And so for me it was important. It's almost like a prisoner who puts markings on a wall.
Pero cuando llega Marilia y sabe el día que es, calcula, empieza a poner desde ese mismo día en la parte de arriba, como si fuera una página en la que ha empezado por la mitad. Entonces ya recupera el espacio anterior y empieza a escribir día tras día, porque no quiere que esos días estén vacíos. Quiere asumir que ha vivido esos días, aunque sea en cautiverio y pasando terribles penalidades. Para mí hay una enorme fuerza y un enorme deseo de sobrevivir cuando tú numeras los días y opones alguna nota autobiográfica como respiro, que es como sobrevivir, o haces un dibujo o una postura de yoga o una frase.
But it changes when Marilia comes and actually knows what day it is, At that point, she begins to sort of mark on top of where she's been writing all the other days, and to put in day after day something so that she can, in a sense, testify to the fact that she was there, that she survived, going through all those terrible things. She didn't want to let any of those days slip away. And in fact, to me, there is something about survival that you really fill in every space, where it's almost like whatever you do, whether you breathe, whether you make a little design, whether you make a mark, that just indicates that you lived that day. Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have time. Antonio,